Can legislation end homelessness in Massachusetts? Pamela Schwartz thinks that can be part of the solution. The director of the Western Massachusetts Network to End Homelessness is sharing its new report, which found a 38% decrease in chronic homelessness with a range of state and local leaders, including a crop of newly elected legislators. But she says there's much work to do, including 2 pieces of legislation where she thinks that change can come quickly.
Well, of course, it's so encouraging to see the hard work that's been going on bear some results. And when we see from 2012 to 2018 a 38% drop in chronic homelessness and a 24% drop in veteran homelessness across the 4 counties of Western Massachusetts, we are encouraged and we are validated by the practices that we are doing that we think should be working, and now we have the data to prove it.
So when you say chronic homelessness, who are the chronically homeless?
Well, there's actually a definition that is defined by HUD, Federal Housing and Urban Development. And so it is a combination, 2 factors. One is the duration of homelessness, so at least a year or 4 periods over a consecutive number of years, and disabled. So there's duration, longevity of homelessness plus disability equals chronic homelessness.
And so when you've seen those numbers drop, the economy is doing better. Can we make that connection between economy and the drop in homelessness?
The chronic homelessness population frequently suffers from disabilities related to mental health or substance use addiction. So they are less likely to find a way into the workforce that's going to pay a full month's rent. And that's not to say that that won't happen, but there are many chronically homeless individuals who need support services, who need what's called permanent supportive housing.
For Western Mass Network to End Homelessness, you're kind of looking at this in 3 ways. And in your most recent report, you call it rare, brief, and non-recurring. I'd like to have us look at rare. So are you saying that homelessness can be prevented entirely when you say rare?
Well, rare is rare, it's not never. And that is the reality of our world, right? Crises are going to happen for one reason or another, whether it's a natural disaster, whether it's a domestic violence situation, whether it's a dramatic loss of income and a sudden eviction, whatever it is, we know our society is not going to be without homelessness, absolutely. But our job is to make it rare. So prevent as well as possible, make it brief, rehouse as quickly as possible, and make it non-recurring. Provide the stability that's necessary so that they don't ever lose their home again.
So Massachusetts has been looking at this at the legislative level for quite some time, whether it's go back to Governor Deval Patrick's administration, where he did say that he saw a path for Massachusetts to end homelessness completely, which we didn't see. But so legislators have been working on this issue for a while. And when you look at the numbers, 46 per 100 affordable housing units across the country, in Massachusetts, right? So Massachusetts is doing better when you look at affordable housing units that are available to people here in the state compared to the nation, right?
Only barely, yes, and so I want to salute the Massachusetts effort, and I want to say the reality is that we need so much more. And so, yes, the statewide statistic is 35 affordable housing units are available for every 100 extremely low-income people. Massachusetts, they're 46. That's less than half the people who are extremely low income and need affordable housing who are served. So we have fixes that we need, and we have proposals to make those fixes that many across the state have adopted and many legislators are supportive of, and so we're hoping that we can continue to make forward progress in the legislature in this coming session around that.
And I know one of the things you point out in the report is that there are other states who are doing significantly better. What's one idea that you would say to legislators, okay, this is happening in X state and I think we should adopt it here?
So one very concrete thing that the state legislature can do is increase the funding for rental assistance and change the fair market rent levels so that we actually make these vouchers more readily usable.
And have other states done this?
Yes.
And it's been successful?
Yes. I mean, it's a sort of straight ahead concept. You got to have, if you're out there trying to rent an apartment, you got to have a usable assist.
There's also 2 pieces of very specific legislation that you're looking at, and you've put a deadline. You think that this is doable by December 31st, according to the report. There's one, the Bill of Rights for people experiencing homelessness. And basically, as I understand it, the bill would entitle homeless people to the same rights as regular Massachusetts residents, which I think people hear that and they think, well, why isn't that happening?
Exactly.
What's currently different for homeless residents than for the average resident?
You know, there is a stigma, unfortunately, that many people have to bear for having experienced homelessness. And there is a sort of common sense response to, well, of course, and any citizen should do the same rights as any other, and certainly not treated differently for being homeless. But there is a reality on the ground that whether it's trying to rent an apartment as a formerly homeless person, whether it's trying to access various services, jobs, right to vote, there's a whole slew of daily living tasks and objectives that can come into contact with a system that responds to somebody who's been homeless or who is homeless. This is just codifying what it is that we all, of course, would expect and want in the treatment of all people, which is that it's fair treatment.
And the second piece of legislation is the Massachusetts ID bill. Yes. So one piece of it would waive the $25 registry fee that people have to pay at the motor vehicle registry. But then there's also this concept of accepting proof of residency from a state or social service agency. So what does that look like?
Well, it means that, so if you're again, applying for a job or trying to take care of some other business that actually bears on your ability to move forward and create and get more income and create more stability in your life, where an ID is required, not having one is a huge barrier. It literally stops people in their tracks for getting their life back on track. And so many of these individuals, if we're doing our job right, are connected to agencies that are providing the versions of assistance, whether again that's a mental health treatment, substance use treatment, SNAP benefit assistance, whatever, child care assistance, they're intersecting with various agencies. If those agencies are in a position, are allowed under this law to verify that this person is a resident based on their relationship with them, that frees people from this barrier of not having a home standing in the way of having an identification.
Very briefly, I know Governor Patrick, I mentioned, he worked on this issue, thought that you could end homelessness in Massachusetts. You've recommended several changes you'd like to see. Do you think that this issue could be different this time around? I think we're
yes. The short answer is yes. And I think that even Governor Patrick, in his vision of ending homelessness, if it was put to him, rare, brief, and non-recurring, that definition of ending, I think from the very get-go, we're always talking about that version of ending. And all I can say is the work is moving forward, and this moment in time is an opportunity to take stock of the successful strategies, what's happening out there that works, and doing more of it.